and I started to call the name, and my mind went blank. It was the Pharaoh of Egypt, a Pharaoh that had never known Joseph. Who was born during that time? Moses. And if we remember back, the promise was made to Abraham that he would dwell in a faraway land. He would eventually be given land for him and his descendants in Canaan, but his people would be in Egypt and under bondage for 400 years. And we're getting to the point where that end of that foretelling by God is coming to, or the end of the foretelling by God is near. But when he was set out, Pharaoh's daughter took him away and brought him up as her own son. And Moses was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians and was mighty in words and deed. Now, when he was 40 years old, it came into his heart to visit his brethren, the children of Israel. And seeing one of them suffering wrong, he defended and avenged him who was oppressed, and struck down the Egyptian. For he supposed that his brethren would have understood that God would deliver them by his hand, but they did not understand. And the next day he appeared to two men of them as they were fighting, and tried to reconcile them, saying, Men, you are brethren. Why do you wrong one another? But he who did his neighbor wrong, pushed him away, saying, Who made you ruler and a judge over us? Do you want to kill me as you did the Egyptian yesterday? Anybody have anything they want to bring out or anything at this time?
I mean, it covered a lot of ground. I mean, it started this little deal. I mean, it covered a number of years.
Mm-hmm. He starts off and he goes back to Abraham and Moses, and then he'll eventually move into Moses delivering them from Egypt and taking them out. And he is using the Old Testament verses to withstand their questioning about, are the things that you're teaching or what they are saying, what the blasphemers are saying about you, which they didn't call them blasphemers, but that's what they were, what they're saying about you true. And he begins to recount the whole history. And from my reading and looking at all of this and everything, anybody have any idea why he probably went back to the Old Testament to start quoting scripture from the Old Testament as to why he would use that as his defense? Mm-hmm. And, he's standing before the Sanhedrin Council, and part of it, and as we'll see a little later on, he's accused of blaspheming against the temple, and it comes across like he's saying, look, God doesn't dwell here. He's not held captive in one spot here in this temple. He's everywhere. He's all around us. And I kind of got the feeling, and I'd read some others that kind of said that that's kind of the way he starts off as a defense, and he's showing reverence to the scriptures because they were saying that he was blaspheming Moses and the scriptures and God and the temple and all this kind of stuff. I think he was kind of showing his reverence for God in the scriptures and all.
In the scriptures. And so that should carry some clout.
It wasn't so much that he was defending himself, he was repeating their charges.
Yes.
And he was using the scripture.
Yes. Then it did say Moses fled and became a dweller in the land of Midian, where he had 2 sons. And when he was 40 years old, and when 40 years had passed, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire, in a bush, in the wilderness of Mount Sinai. Why did he flee? Why did he run away from Egypt?
Actually, he was afraid. I think he killed a Egyptian.
Mm-hmm. And that was automatic punishment by death to have killed an Egyptian, even though he was at Pharaoh's house and had been adopted son of Pharaoh. Still, by Egyptian law, it could have been immediate death to him too.
40 years had passed. Okay, when he left Egypt, he was 40 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So this means 80 years old.
And as we notice through going through this, Moses' life is broken down in 40-year segments.
Yes.
He's 40 years old, he's raised up in the Egyptian house, the Pharaoh's house, until he's 40 years old. Then he leaves and he goes off to Midian, and he's there for 40 years, and then he's sent back to Egypt. And then when he takes the Hebrews out of Egypt and goes through the desert and over to the wilderness, or goes right up to the land of Canaan,
Wander.
and then they're forced to wander for 40 years. So who adopted Moses? Pharaoh's daughter. Was Moses well educated and a capable person?
Yes.
Yes, he was. He was educated in Pharaoh's house with all the learnings of the Egyptians. And the Egyptians were some of the most educated people in the world at the time. But even though he tried to use the excuse that he couldn't speak very well, that didn't go over real well either.
When you look at God's dealing with mankind, and most of us has been here a while, knows pretty well the Bible, not all of it, but from Genesis on. I got to think today, at what time did God say it was okay to worship Him any way we want? I mean, that just hit me. All the problems God faced with His people from the time of creation. When did He say it was okay? You can worship me any way you want to? Okay. And that's where we're at.
And just like we see on numerous occasions, now during this time through Acts, where we look back at the Old Testament, how many times did the Jews turn away and go make a god of wood or a god of gold, or and mm-hmm. Which always just blows my mind to think you saw God. I mean, if you want to call it a fight, which there can't be a fight between an inanimate object and an animate object, but if you wanted to call it a fight between God and the Egyptian gods, he easily overthrew them. Why would they want to continue to? But
When you know, well, I wasn't there, I wasn't none of it, but see that Red Sea bar and cross it on track around? That should, I don't see how anybody could, you know, worship God any other than what you see.
so how old was Moses the first time he tried to deliver his people? Or he was 40 years old. And he thought that the people would understand what he was trying to do. And yeah, he probably got the right idea, but he got the timing wrong. Because God hadn't told him to do this yet. Did the Israelites appreciate Moses' efforts to deliver them? No, they didn't. They didn't appreciate his efforts. They questioned his authority and his motives as to why. So, to what land did Moses flee? He went to Midian. So, how did the angel appear? Did he just, like, Moses is standing there one day and all of a sudden he's standing there beside him? Like a flame, or in a flame, in a bush. And I always have to have a visual reference. We start talking about people moving around. Now, if they were in Texas and they said he went from Dallas to San Antonio, I would be able to picture that in my mind. But when we move over there and he talks about moving from Egypt to Midian, which would be down here, and as best as I could figure, that was about a 600-mile trip, which, you know, that kind of threw me too, because I think about how do these people move during this time. That's a long walk. Okay. Anybody got anything they want to add before we continue on? So God delivers Israel by Moses. When Moses saw it, the angel in the bush, in the burning in the bush, he marveled at the sight, and as he drew near to observe, the voice of the Lord came to him, saying, I am the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses trembled and dared not look. Then the Lord said to him, take the sandals off your feet, for the place where you stand is holy ground. I have surely seen the oppression of my people who are in Egypt. I have heard their groaning, and I have come down to deliver them. And now come, I will send you to Egypt. And then Moses starts looking for an excuse. This Moses whom they rejected, saying, who made you a ruler and a judge, is the one God sent to be a ruler and a deliverer by the hand of the angel who appeared to him in the bush. He brought them out after he had shown wonders and signs in the land of Egypt and in the Red Sea and in the wilderness for 40 years. Whom did God use to deliver the Israelites from Egyptian bondage? Well, we all know that was Moses. Moses brought them out. And again, Stephen is using this. He's showing his, I keep using the term, he's showing his reverence for the scriptures. He's going back and he's showing them, look, I know the scriptures. I know what the scriptures are. And in a few minutes, he's going to show them where Moses says, there will be another coming after me that God will raise up. And Stephen kind of pushes it that Jesus is this one that he raised up. And y'all killed him because he let you. He doesn't say that, but I mean, if you really think about it, if Jesus had not have wanted to allow them to do that, could they have done that? No. No way. Israel rebels against God numerous times. This is that Moses who said to the children of Israel, the Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from your brethren. Him you shall hear. Moses told them, he's coming. He's going to bring someone else like me to, and as it's worded, someone to take you out of bondage. And the reference is definitely toward Jesus. This is he who was in the congregation in the wilderness with the angel who spoke to him on Mount Sinai, and with our father, the one who received the living oracles to give to us, whom our fathers would not obey, but rejected in their hearts, turned back to Egypt. So again, he's bringing it back around. Moses said there's one coming. He's going to be here, and you shall hear him. And the Pharisees are like, we're not either. Saying to Aaron, make us gods to go before us. As for this Moses who brought us out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him. So they go to Aaron and they say, Aaron, make us a golden calf. And he does. It just jumps out of the fire. And people, sometimes.
Just like we said, people, is it any different today?
And they made a calf in those days, offered sacrifices to the idol, and rejoiced in the works of their own hands. Ooh-wee, look how great we are because we did this. Then God turned and gave them up to worship the host of heaven, as it is written in the book of the prophets. Did you offer me slaughtered animals and sacrifices during 40 years in the wilderness? O house of Israel. You also took up the tabernacle of Molech and the star of your god Rephaim, images which you made to worship, and I will carry you away beyond Babylon. So he takes them out of Egypt, out of bondage. They go into the land of Canaan after they wander around for 40 years. And what do? They go right back to doing the same thing they did in the wilderness when they made the calf. They start making their own gods and worshiping lumps of wood and stuff like that. And Stephen is using all of this to point out, look, come on. You keep turning away. And it's kind of like, why? But there is one here, or there was one here, that offers you salvation, that you can save yourselves. You also took, I already did that one. Our fathers had the tabernacle of witness in the wilderness, as he appointed and instructed Moses to make it according to the pattern that he had seen. Which our fathers have received it in turn, also brought with Joshua into the land possessed by the Gentiles, whom God drove out before the face of our fathers until the day of David, who found favor before God and asked to find a dwelling for the God of Jacob. But Solomon built the house. However, the Most High does not dwell in temples made with hands, as the prophet says. Heaven is my throne, and earth is my footstool. What house will you build for me, says the Lord, or what is the place of my rest? Has my hand not made all these things? So, Stephen had been accused of blaspheming the temple. And he basically sums it up right there at the end. So, what evil things did the Israelites do in the wilderness? Well, they made a calf. What else did they do? They made sacrifices to it. And then they rejoiced in the works of their own hands because they went, ooh, look at us, we're so great. So who was authorized to build the tabernacle in the wilderness? Moses. So who got the authorization to build the temple? David? Yeah, he wasn't authorized because he was a man of war. So Solomon got the authorization to build the temple.